Hey everyone, it's Lisa from Primitive Gatherings, and today we are going to teach you all about Teresa, which is one of our quilts in our mini quilt series. So this is a quilt that I named after my mother, and we have one more quilt in this series to go, but this one, I'll give you a quick little good look at it, is pretty much all wool applique. So my mother loved her peony garden, and she also loved watching the hummingbirds twiddle around her yard. So that's why I did the hummingbird, and then all of these are supposed to be peonies. All right, they are all wool applique. This is wool, and then this background is flannel. So that's what we are going to talk about today. So if you get a kit from us, these are the fabrics that you're going to get. We have this basket weave type of flannel that will be in your kit. And we have, I wouldn't say we had a ton of kits. So if you really love this one and you like these colors, grab yourself a kit right away because they're not going to last very long. And then I've just got some of my scraps left over from when I made it. And then our background that everything goes on is also wool. So I'm parking that there for now, and then I'll talk a little bit about maybe if you've never done wool applique, what are the different things you're going to encounter with this project. So here's our pattern, and inside our pattern we have our layout sheets. You would trim that there and then tape these two together. And I'm not going to do that because I have mine from when I did it. So I'm just going to use the one half that I have. And then here is our tracing sheets here. So in this one, I believe it has 5 different flowers. And one of them is cranberry colored wool, that's that dark red. And then all of the other ones you're going to trace here with this. All right. And then this one up top here is the green. That's not big enough because I just grabbed a scrap to show you how to do the stems. So this is the tracing sheet. Don't trace from the layout. All right. So then we use fusible web here at Primitive Gatherings. So what I have done is I've traced the outer scallop here onto my fusible web, and I like the Heat and Bond Featherlight, and I'm going to show you how it works here. So this is it. I trace and then I trim really super close, you know, maybe about 1/8 inch away. You never trim on the line on fusible web. And then I'm going to try something that I never thought about doing before. So we're going to test something here today. So what I did was, one of the things we have to do is we have to draw our lines on here or use a light box to get these stems underneath the flowers. So I thought, what about if I trace those stems right on my fusible web, and then when it's on the wool, I can put that right on the light box and just trace on top of the wool where those stems go. So let's see if that works, all right? Okay, so then I have already traced, I got my background, and then I traced one set of flowers here for us. And I'm going to quickly trim those out. So I'm just going to go right on the outside of each one. And you're going to do this for however many colors of flowers. I think there's 5. You're going to find your wool, and you're just going to place it near the edge there. And then this green, I have a scrap to show you how to cut the stems. So the stems are out of Steam-A-Seam 2 Light. So this has like a tackiness to it, and this helps me bend them, and they stay bent when I put them onto the background. If I used the Heat and Bond Featherlight, they wouldn't do that. I'd have to like run it with the iron that way to get that. So I'm just going to place this onto my wool. Now, some of your wools, if you get a kit from us, are going to be different on each side. So the side that you like the best, you put the fusible on the opposite side. Okay, so now I'm going to slide over to my iron over here and show you. I don't want to do too much on my mat here because I don't want to warp it. Ask me how I did that once already. All right, so I'm just going to place this onto my background. Now with this fusible web, you do not need steam on paper when I'm doing this, but when we put the wools onto the background, then we need steam to make sure that adheres nicely. So I'm just going to make sure I get it nice and fused down. I kind of always keep the iron moving. I don't want to scorch my wool. And you can't overheat this. So it's best to just make sure it's down really, really nice. All right. So now that I have that, I would cut this out right here on the drawn line. Like that. Okay? But I'm not going to waste a bunch of time doing that for you. You kind of understand how that's going to work. All right, so that's prepped and ready to go. Now I'll prep this one right here. I'll hit that one down. Remember, no steam, just hot, hot iron. And then we'd cut all of those out. And then this one is for the stems or vines, whatever we want to call them. Okay, so then I have this really cool ruler for cutting stems. Now I need 8 stems at 2.5 inches. So we just have this long piece of wool here. So I'm just going to cut, and then I'm going to put it on 4, and then I'm going to cut this in half. So this ruler is just for cutting stems that are 3/16 inch. So why 3/16? Because if I cut 1/4 inch, by the time I stitch them, they're going to look way bigger than that. So I cut them 3/16. When I stitch them, then they look 1/4 inch. So that is why I do it that way. So then I'm going to cut 1, slide over. Oh, that was slid over 2. Okay. All right, I might have cut an extra stem, but that's okay. We can always use it for something, right? There, and then I'm just going to cut it in half, and I'm just going to eyeball it, because that'll work. And then I can get some of this off that doesn't have any on, and then there I have my 8 stems just like that. All right, so now this is what I'm talking about how to get your stems on here. And then I have another way to show you in case you don't have a light box. So I'm going to slide my beautiful new light box toward me, and we might have to adjust a little bit lighting here. We'll see once. So once this is cut out, it's all cut out, look at, when I put it on here, I can see every one of my lines where my stems go. So now all I have to do is pick this up and place it on and bend it around. And they're a little big, so I can trim them off a little bit. I just probably slid my scissors over here. They're going to go under the flowers. And I just drew what shows on the pattern. So make them just a little bit bigger than that. Kaylee, can you see those lines through the thing or not really?
Yes, I can.
Okay, good, perfect. So then, like I said, give them a little trim, and you're going to just put those down that way, all the way around. You're going to cut out your flowers, and then you can put the flowers and the leaves on there. Just getting the stems is the hardest part, and that's why I wanted to take a time to show you how you get that easily enough. All right, so then here's another thing. Ooh, whoa, look, I didn't know that went so bright. Super cool. I got a brand new one. That's why it's a little different than my other one. Okay, so let's talk about if you don't have a light box. How are you going to get those stems drawn on your wool? What I did was I cut out the pattern. So this right here is where the stems are. So I will just lay my stems here, here, here. I'll place that onto my fabric like so. And then you would just place them around it that way. So I'm kind of giving you a couple different options on how to lay those on. You can just draw a line, or you can place the stems around there like that. Okay, so those are kind of a couple of things that are a little different than a lot of the other wool projects that we do, but I want to talk a couple minutes on a couple of the other things that's going on here. All right, so once you have this all fused down, you're going to fuse this background onto our flannel that fell over there onto the floor when I was pushing some things around. So you're going to take the paper off the back of this when you have those all fused down, and then you're going to steam this out, the wrinkles out of this, and then you're going to place that on there. So it'll look like this then, not quilted, obviously. So then you're going to do blanket stitch around the flowers, and we put a little diagram in there for the blanket stitch because you're going to go where the little indents are, you're going to do a long blanket stitch and then a short one in the curve, and then a long one, a short one, a long one. And you do the bottom one first, then you do the top, and then you put a colonial knot in the middle of each flower. And we've listed all of the threads that you need for each color of these wools. And then when it was all done, I did this really fancy stitching. This is a fly stitch, and then this again is the colonial knot. This is a variegated thread, so it's only one thread, so it kind of has like almost like all the colors in those peonies, so that worked really well. And then after it came back from the quilter, who is Sherry Sweeney, it's one of our girls who works here at the shop. She did a fabulous job on this, and you know we had a little funny thing happen with this. These lines right here, she had marked it in like she was going to quilt them, and then the blue marking pen never came out. It turned like a really cruddy brown color. So I just stem stitched these curved lines over her brown lines that didn't go away, and I think it turned out pretty good. And I had to add those 4 extra flowers. So if you didn't want to add those 4 extra flowers and did it like it is on the pattern, but we did add these in for you if you want to make those. And then after you're done stitching, it goes to the quilter, and then it comes back, and then I put the binding on. All right, so the other half of your 2/3 yards will be used to cut binding, and depending on which way you cut it, I told you to cut like 90 inches of binding to go all the way around. And then you put your binding on just like a quilt, and then I did this fancy stem stitch right in the corner where the binding is attached with that same variegated thread. Just, you know, maybe just to show off a little bit, that's why I did it. You don't have to do that by any means, but if you love to stitch and do embroidery stitches, it just gives it a little bit extra fun touch. And sometimes those little extra touches might win you a ribbon at the quilt show, and they do have miniature quilt categories. So I'm just saying that just might happen if you are brave enough to put your quilt in the show. But really, quilt shows are very fun. I still remember the first time I ever seen a quilt show, and it was amazing. I walked through that place with my mouth hanging open because I never knew this even existed. All right, so that's all I have for you today. A couple tips on how to work with the wool applique, because most of the quilts that we have done so far for the minis have not been wool. But like I said, I needed to honor my mom with her peonies and her hummingbirds. So we have Teresa all in wool, and then next month we will have Cousin Mary, and she will conclude our series of these 12 minis. All right, all for now, and we'll catch you next month.